When I was in 8th grade, our regular homeroom teacher, Mr. Clark, suddenly went on personal leave. Nobody knew why. He was the kind of teacher everyone liked, calm, funny, always played guitar after class. The next week, we got a substitute teacher. Her name was Ms. Ward. She was quiet, polite, and honestly kind of strange. She wore the same dark gray dress every day and never took attendance. She just knew everyone's names from the moment she walked in. At first, we thought she was cool. She let us talk softly during class and didn't give out homework. But she always seemed distracted, staring at the clock or whispering something to herself when she thought no one was watching. About a week after she arrived, weird things started happening. Every morning, the intercom would click on for a second, not enough for anyone to speak, just a faint static noise that lasted exactly 5 seconds. And during those 5 seconds, Ms. Ward would freeze. Like she was listening to something. One time, a student dropped a book during that static sound. She spun around so fast it made everyone jump. Then she smiled, that kind of tight, uncomfortable smile, and said, "You shouldn't interrupt the call." We laughed it off, but that sentence stuck with me. The call. Then, one Thursday, our principal came into class looking confused. He said, "Class, where's your substitute?" We all looked at each other. "She's right," I started to say, but her desk was empty. Her coat, her bag, everything was gone. The principal frowned. "No one's checked in as a substitute for this room all week." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I went online and searched the district substitute list. There was no record of anyone named Ms. Ward. The next day, our regular teacher, Mr. Clark, came back. He looked thinner, tired. We all started talking at once, telling him about Ms. Ward, how she'd been filling in for him. He went silent. Then he said, "No one should have been in this class. The school was supposed to stay empty while they cleaned it." We didn't believe him. Until he opened the supply closet. Inside were rows of old class photos. The most recent one, from 5 years ago, showed a teacher standing in front of the same chalkboard. Same gray dress. Same hair. Same face. Her nameplate read Ms. Ward, English Department. She died in 2018 in that classroom. Heart attack during morning announcements. That night, I stayed late after basketball practice. As I walked past room 108, our homeroom, the intercom crackled for 5 seconds. Static. Then silence. Through the small glass window, I saw someone standing by the desk. Same gray dress. Staring at the clock. I was 17 when it happened. I went to a small public high school, the kind that always smelled like old books and dust. I wasn't a bad student, but I had a habit of staying behind after class to finish projects. That's what I was doing that night, painting props for our school play. Everyone had gone home except me and the janitor, Mr. Lawson. It was raining outside, heavy enough to drown out the hum of the old fluorescent lights. I was sitting in the art room, completely focused, when I heard something roll across the floor behind me, like a bottle cap. I turned around. Nothing. But the window blinds were swaying slightly, even though the windows were closed. I shrugged it off. Probably the draft from the hallway. A few minutes later, I heard faint footsteps. Not hurried, not sneaky, just slow, deliberate steps echoing down the hall. I assumed it was Mr. Lawson doing his rounds. But when I looked out the doorway, the hallway lights were off. I called out, "Mr. Lawson?" No answer. Just that faint echo again, step. I grabbed my backpack, thinking I'd had enough, and started down the hall toward the exit. That's when I noticed something strange. One of the classroom doors, room 12, was open a few inches. That room had been sealed off after a small electrical fire last year. I'd never seen it open before. From inside, I heard something, faint, like the dragging of a chair. It didn't sound like an echo. It sounded close. I told myself not to be stupid, probably just air from the broken window inside. But when I passed by, I glanced through the crack. Someone was standing near the blackboard. I could only see the back of their head, short hair, gray suit jacket. I thought, maybe the principal? I knocked lightly. "Sir?" The figure didn't move. I blinked, and it was gone. I swear, it just vanished. I backed away fast and nearly tripped over something on the floor, an old math paper, burnt on the edges. It looked decades old. The ink had run, but one word was still clear at the bottom: late. I ran. The exit doors were locked, even though Mr. Lawson was supposed to leave them open. I started to panic, hitting the glass and shouting. Then I saw him, the janitor, coming from the other end of the hall. He was pale, shaking, and said, "Kid, you shouldn't be here after 6. I asked why. He hesitated, then said, "That's when the fire started. Same time, every year. You hear the teacher walk the halls before it starts." Before I could say anything, the fire alarm went off. No smoke, no heat, just the sound. All the hallway lights flickered. And in one flash of white, I swear I saw the man again, standing in the doorway of room 12, watching me. The alarm cut out, and everything went silent. The next morning, I went back with my teacher. The room was locked tight again. But when she looked through the glass, she froze. On the blackboard, written in white chalk, were the words, "You stayed too late." Back in middle school, I worked on the yearbook committee. It wasn't exciting, just taking pictures of assemblies, sports teams, and clubs, but it gave me a reason to skip gym class. There were only 4 of us in the club: me, a girl named Clara, our teacher Mrs. Evans, and a senior volunteer named Josh who handled the computer stuff. One rainy afternoon, Mrs. Evans told us we'd be doing something different. She said, "The principal wants to include a few old photos in this year's book. Kind of a look back through history section." So she took us to the storage room behind the library, a place students weren't usually allowed to go. It was dusty, cold, and filled with stacks of old cardboard boxes. Each box had handwritten labels: class photos, sports, staff 1980 to 1990. We found one near the bottom that said, negatives, 1980s. Inside were dozens of old film rolls, curled up and brittle with age. Mrs. Evans smiled and said, "Perfect. You can scan a few of these for next week." That night, after everyone else went home, I decided to start scanning them early. The school's computer lab was quiet, just the hum of the old scanner and the soft tapping of rain on the windows. I started with a few normal ones: pep rallies, basketball games, cafeteria shots. Then I found that photo. Back in middle school, I worked on the yearbook committee. It was labeled, Class of 1989, Gym Portrait. When it appeared on the screen, I instantly noticed something strange. The picture showed a group of students standing in front of the gym doors, the same doors still used today. Same windows, same cracked tiles. But something about it felt off. The lighting looked uneven, and all of the students were smiling except for one, a figure standing slightly off to the right. At first, I thought it was a teacher. But when I zoomed in, I realized it was another student, just standing apart from the rest. Their face was blurred. Not motion blur, it looked like the photo didn't want to show it. And their eyes, they looked hollow. Faded. I counted the students, 12. Then I counted again. 13. One of them wasn't standing in line, just slightly behind the others, like they didn't belong there. When Mrs. Evans came in to check on me, I asked her, "Hey, who's the extra person in this photo?" She glanced at it, froze for a second, then said quietly, "Oh, that must be the missing student. We don't talk about that one." Before I could ask what she meant, she walked out of the room. I thought she was joking. Teachers say weird things sometimes, right? But something about the way she said we don't talk about that one, it sounded practiced. Like she'd said it before. Later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I went back to the photo and scanned it again, this time in higher resolution. When it finished processing, I almost dropped the mouse. The blurred face wasn't blurred anymore. It looked clear. Too clear. I could see the person's hair, the way their head tilted slightly, even the fold in their jacket. And that jacket, it was the exact same one I wore every day to school. Same gray hoodie, same black patch on the sleeve. Then I noticed something else. The reflection in the gym window behind the group, there was a figure standing there too. It wasn't in in front of the camera. It was behind it. Someone tall, holding something up, like a camera. I shut down the scanner immediately. The next morning, I went straight to Mrs. Evans. I told her what I saw and showed her the printed photo. She looked at it for a long time without saying a word. Then she said, "Where did you get this one?" I told her it came from the Negatives 1980s box. Her face went pale. She took the photo from my hand and said, "You must be mistaken. There were only 12 in that class." Then she slipped the print into her desk drawer and locked it. When I got home, I checked my bag. The USB drive I'd used to scan the photos was missing. I was sure I'd put it in my pocket before leaving the lab. That night, I had this dream, or at least I think it was a dream. I was in the school gym, alone. The lights were flickering, and I could hear the faint clicking of a camera shutter echoing off the walls. When I looked up at the bleachers, I saw a figure standing there, holding an old-fashioned camera. Every time the flash went off, they got closer. When I finally saw the face behind the flash, it was mine. The next morning, I told Clara about it. She just stared at me and said, "You shouldn't have looked too close. My brother was in that class. They said one kid disappeared after picture day. The roll of film came back with an extra student. That was the last time I ever worked on the yearbook. Now, years later, I sometimes help clean up after basketball games in that same gym. Every now and then, I'll hear the faint click of a camera, even when no one's around. And once, only once, I found a photo on the bleachers. It was a picture of me, standing in front of the gym doors. But I swear, I don't remember anyone taking it.